Tonight on the Goblins Corner.
Ropers and chokers.
Oh my.
That's how we roll. 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 That's how we roll.
Welcome to the Goblins Corner. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight,
We've got Ropers and Chokers.
that's right.
Because it's our Valentine's edition.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And to celebrate, we decided to do something ridiculous by talking about two little-used monsters in D&D that
Are on theme.
are on theme, depending upon the type of theme you happen to be into.
Indeed.
And so we're going to tell you a little bit about the differences between ropers and chokers and how you can throw them into your game, add a little spice to them as well.
Yeah.
But before we get to that,
Got a question of the week, man.
that's right. So I'm assuming it's on theme this week, Matt.
It is.
Okay, what do we got?
Well, since we decided to do Ropers and Chokers for Valentine's Day, I thought, what other monsters might have been on that same sort of theme for the holiday?
Okay, so we've got the bondage theme going on with ropers and chokers, but we could also have piercers.
It's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Spectators.
Oh, they do like to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Flumps. Because you can just hug them. They can cuddle. They're cuddle monsters.
It's true. Basically anything with tentacles, really.
Yeah, depending upon the type of game you want to run,
Yeah.
that would also work. And you know what? I would say stuff like owlbears.
Any sort of were creature
Oh, yeah, the were creatures would be very good.
for a specific subset of folks.
All right, yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have any other? No, that's all we
Like
got.
most of the Monster Manual, let's be honest.
It's true.
Somebody
Most
out there.
most of the monster manual will totally be useful for this particular
Theme.
style. Yeah, for this particular theme. Are you a cuddler of owlbears, or perhaps you like to hump? Write to us. info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric, at goblinscorner.com, or
Me, Matt, at goblinscorner.com.
and of course you can find us on all the things, such as
Twitter mostly.
basically Twitter.
Mostly.
I mean, we're on a Discord now,
Well, that's true.
and we've got Instagram and all the other stuff. We have all
We
the
don't
stuff.
talk a lot on Instagram. You just post pictures because
That's what
Because-
Instagram's for.
yeah.
Posting pictures. And Matt's on TikTok
it's true.
sometimes. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the monsters at hand. Because it is Valentine's Day because of that, and we're somewhat sarcastically amused by throwing these monsters into this episode, ropers and chokers. So, ropers and chokers, you say? What are we talking about when we say ropers and chokers? Why would we put them into an episode?
Well, first off, they don't get enough love.
That is true. Ropers and chokers don't get enough love. They're awesome monsters. They've got some really awesome conditions to throw at PCs.
Indeed, like grappling, restrained. Those can be rough for certain characters.
Such as spellcasters or clerics.
Anybody that's not strong enough to break free.
There you go. Both creatures are ambush monsters, which that means lots of fear factors, right?
If you play them correctly, both have the ability to be super creepy.
So if you want to have that type of game with a little bit of horror thrown in, these are some low-level monsters that could be potentially deadly for your characters and kind of give a little bit of that flavor. Because we're all about that mo flavor.
Yes, indeed.
All the time. Okay, let's start with the roper. So, Matt, what is a roper? Give me a definition, the basic definition of the roper.
Ropers are ambush hunters that evolved in the Underdark/Underworld, depending on where you're coming from.
And the writing and the addition and such.
Right. They are often mistaken for naturally occurring stalagmites, and generally that's where the definition stops.
That's pretty much it in most editions.
Yeah.
Now, we did find a couple other things in our research and digging, mostly on Wikipedia, but also on other sites. And I actually opened up a couple of my books.
I was going to say, and just old monster manuals that were
Anybody's playing the home game, watching the YouTube video, can see there's a few books behind Matt.
of various editions.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this case, some of the lore, it's been pretty much consistent since they first came out, which was in Strategic Review in 1975.
Right.
That's older than us, by the way.
Yes, indeed. Basically, they agree that they're ambush predators,
Mhm.
and most books don't have an awful lot else to say. However,
some lore shows that they were favored by the drow god Ganador.
which is interesting.
Because what is Ganador the god of? It's oozes?
Slimes, oozes, and molds.
And that's in the Forgotten Realms, by the way.
Right? But ropers are none of those things.
It's true. Maybe they're just like jelly.
Maybe they're squishy on the inside.
Oh, like a nougat. Some label ropers as a type of earth elemental. I believe 4th edition started with that.
I believe so.
And then their monstrosities in 5th.
Right. Some ropers are known to dwell above ground, and they disguise themselves as dead tree trunks.
Which is fascinating. And when we get to talk about upgrading your roper and choker, we'll definitely add a few extra elements to that.
Sure.
And finally, which I find interesting, is larval forms of ropers are known as piercers. But the actual piercer monsters are different than ropers.
Right.
Now, I would actually make the piercers be larval forms of ropers.
Absolutely.
Because that just makes perfect sense to me.
100%. That's how that's going to work in our world.
It starts off as a fearsome mollusk monster that just stabs you in the gut and devours you, and then gets too big for stabbing you by falling on you and just becomes a roper.
Gets tired of holding itself up there, man. It's like, wow, I've gotten big. I'm going to have to start staying on the ground mostly.
Grow out of my britches. I need to, sprout some tentacles and just devour you. Let's talk a little bit about some stats that a roper might have.
First off, they've got false appearance, which means they're indistinguishable from normal cave formations such as stalagmites.
This is true. In addition to that, I want to light upon the word normal cave formation. Now, most of the time that is a stalagmite, but it could be anything in the cave. Doesn't have to be a stalagmite. Could just be that rock you sit on to rest that suddenly sprouts teeth.
I also like the concept of a column where there's one on the top and one on the bottom, and they just kind of meet in the center.
Mm-hmm. Kind of bounce on each other and then grab stuff and eat them.
Sure.
Yeah. So just something to think about. They do have grasping tendrils, 6 in fact, and they can create more if they're damaged.
Yeah, cutting them off doesn't help you.
Now, older editions had those tentacles which drained strength, which I always thought was really interesting because, they're just kind of like fly paper tendrils, like they're thin, whip-like, they just kind of splat out, and then when they hit you, then you're like, the warrior just goes, ugh, and he's dead.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh no, my strength is gone. But later editions, I think, got rid of that because probably reasons.
I think the squidgy tentacles is where the Ganador thing comes in.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
It's pseudopod-ish.
And they were also sticky as well.
Yep.
And I don't know if the later editions like 4th and 5th have them as sticky either.
No, I think they're just grasping.
Just grasping, grappling, yeah.
Now, some of the lore gave them resistance to certain damages.
That's true.
Like cold or what have you.
And that was, again, going back to the elemental idea. So they were resistant, for example, to slashing or bludgeoning damage or whatnot. Or resistant to cold was another one I saw. They could also be resistant to, I think one of them actually had them resistant to negative damage.
I don't like that.
That could be, yeah, I don't like that either.
I wouldn't give it to them.
I wouldn't do that either. One thing, of course, which is obvious, they have spider climb because they can stick to ceilings or walls.
Right.
Think about that.
They don't grow out of it.
Yeah, well, think about the walls. Don't see many ropers on a wall.
It's true.
Everyone's looking up, but they're not looking like right next to them. Yeah.
Can you imagine walking through the mouth of a cave, if you will, that's kind of ringed all the way around by stalactites, stalagmites.
And they're all ropers?
And it's all ropers.
That would be awful. And hilarious.
How much do you hate your party? That's really what you're
that's really what you're getting at. It's how much you really want to piss people off. What else do ropers have in terms of stats, Matt?
Well, they get multi-attack.
Obviously, they've got 6 tendrils. And now that's in 4th and 5th.
Right. They also get bite because it does you no good to pull something in if you're not going to eat it.
You can reel them in. They get greeled, which incurs the grappled condition in many editions.
They also have, honestly, just a decent AC and some dark vision.
Yeah, because they're supposedly like stone-like in texture and nature.
Right.
One thing I find very fascinating is they have an int of 7.
Yes.
Now, while that means that they are intelligent, most of the lore says they speak no languages, which means
You cannot use detect thoughts to find them.
right, because they don't have a language.
Right. And detect thoughts specifically states it has to have a language.
Now, obviously, if you have a roper and you've upgraded them and they can speak, then
detect thoughts suddenly works on.
suddenly works. But for just the average feral roper that's just kind of kicking around in a cavern,
Nope.
too bad.
Yeah.
That means mind flayers can't find them either.
Correct. That puts my PC brain in a whole different place.
They can also, by the way, be, cerebromorphs or whatever they are. They can be injected with a mind flare tadpole and become this horrible this psionically induced roper.
Oh, neat.
It's pretty badass.
That's gross. One of the other things about them, though, is they have a wisdom of 16. In some lore, there are people who would actually seek them out to discuss religion and philosophy, which is unusual since most of them don't speak a language.
Well, maybe they
Clearly most.
Maybe they can gesture, or maybe they're just wise in the ways of cavern lore.
Right, but how would you
Communicate it?
that without any language?
They ingest you, and you learn in the gullet of the roper. Now, if all of this wasn't interesting enough, why else are ropers interesting to use in a campaign?
Well, they're classic.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
they are
nothing
some of
wrong
the
with a
first
classic.
D&D monsters. They've got an ambush quality to them, which is always great. There's nothing better than you're running. They're already paranoid, first off, in a cavern or in a dungeon system, regardless.
As they should be.
As they should be. But throwing in a roper just every now and then to eat a party member or the paladin is always a delight. It's true. They won't eat the paladin. He's got too much armor. They just drown him first.
I feel like the next time I run a game, I'm going to need you to play a paladin.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have water wings and water breathing. I'll have a scuba tank.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to talk to you about something later. All right. They look like stalagmites or broken columns. If you describe the room and you roll, well, first off, if they're not actively looking for something, that means it's passive perception. And if nobody's passive perception picks them up, then it's going to be surprise time.
Mealtime.
Yep,
Yeah. And finally, they can be NPCs, as we mentioned, because they have a relatively low int, but not a bad int.
No.
They can be reasoned with a little minor tinkering on the side of the DM if you want to give them a language or skills or whatnot.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about chokers, or what I like to call tiny blubbery murder halflings.
Yes.
What is the definition of a choker, Matt?
Chokers, generally in most descriptions, have bodies resembling naked halflings, but with blubbery mottled flesh.
Yeah, rubbery flesh, rubbery naked halflings.
Their limbs are long and spindly, and normally are depicted as kind of tentacly. And they end in clawed hands.
And sometimes they're starfish-shaped clawed hands.
Yes.
So you've got like the piercing, I guess, cilia or whatever they are on the hand.
Kind of like
face.
Displacer Beast tentacles as well.
Yeah, very similar to like this Displacer Beast stuff. And then their arms are just like bendy, all bendy. Now, some of them are multi-jointed arms instead. So you have these really elongated arms and they're not bendy. Like earlier editions had that, I think. But I like the tentacle limbs myself.
Especially considering a later portion of the description. And their heads and torsos contain bones. Their arms and legs are composed entirely of cartilage.
Mm-hmm.
This gives the choker a bow-legged gait because basically it's holding itself up with muscles, not with structure.
Yeah, it's just kind of like bouncing along. Boing, boing, boing.
Or it's a cowboy.
Well, you know, like what I think of is this, what is it? The boxcar Willie, like that kind of like a rubber gait that all of the early cartoons had.
Sure.
Now, their hands and feet, as we mentioned, have those spiny pads. So it allows the choker to grip to any surface, which means, guess what? They can climb or choke the life out of you. Speaking of which, let's give us some lore.
All right.
What's the first thing we learn when we look up chokers?
Well, they're hideous monsters that hid underground and strangled their prey to death.
Shocking. And most of the time, that's pretty much it in many editions, although we have found some extra stuff. Now, they've been around since first edition, and almost always are chaotic evil in terms of alignment.
Yep.
It kind of tends to be the thing when you're called a choker and you choke the life out of things and eat them.
It's almost like you're probably not a nice person.
No.
They're generally underground creatures, although there is a subspecies that is called a Faygrove choker.
Yeah, so you've got the cavern chokers, and you got the Faygrove chokers, which I assume hang out in the trees and come down and choke the life out of you.
They're glittery chokers.
Glittery chokers?
Yeah, that's the only difference.
Sure, why not? Yeah, because of Fey?
Yeah.
You just have to have glitter if you're Fey?
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
They've got like a little bit around the eyes, and that's it.
That's a rule we should have. All Fey have to have
some glitter.
An ounce of glitter at the minimum on them. Doesn't matter if you're a satyr or a goblin.
Sure.
Just got to have some glitter.
Yep.
Could be different colored glitter.
If you have a Fey feat, if there's anything about your character that's Fey, you're required
to be slightly fabulous.
Yes.
I agree with this. Now, they usually, in most of the lore, ate goblins, but any humanoid would do in a pinch.
Sure.
And I would assume goblins because goblins are small creatures and they're also small creatures. So
they're easier to choke.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And they tend to have, in a lot of the imagery of goblins, they tend to have thin necks, but big heads and big bodies. So once you get wrapped around that neck, there's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah. It's good eating on a goblin.
Big feet.
Big feet. Yeah.
They eat feet steak.
Feet steak. Feet flank. A little flank of feet?
Sure.
Why not? Yeah.
Good stuff.
What else do we know about chokers?
They communicate with creepy howling sounds that are hard to pinpoint in caves because of the echoing.
Mm-hmm.
There's debate amongst scholars about which languages, if any, chokers can speak. Perhaps because of their low intelligence, it kept their vocabulary really low.
Yeah. Of course, in your game, they might speak, or you could just keep them as chattering idiots.
Sure.
Either of which works, right? They're monsters.
Or maybe they're capable of speaking and just don't.
Mm-hmm. Now, in Eberron, they had him as predominantly solitary, often described as cowardly, and in some cases, they had like a loose tribal structure. I believe just standard D&D had them just as like loners.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of like a group of chokers that just kind of hanging out.
Absolutely.
Just rampaging through the woods or in the cavern system and choke the life out of goblins or halflings. Dwarves, perhaps.
Everyone they can get their hands on.
Really, yeah.
Literally, that they can get their hands on.
One thing I found interesting of note, goblins, gnolls, and other creatures sometimes kept them as pets or guardians. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, goblins sometimes kept them as pets, but they predominantly ate goblins. Now, that makes perfect sense to me.
Right. Because generally the most dangerous thing to a goblin is other goblins.
But now it's also the pets they keep. Well, they keep wargs, too.
Yeah.
And wargs often
both of which
ate goblins.
Yes.
It's tough. It's a harsh time to be a goblin, man. Let me say, everything wants to eat you. You're trying to do bad, but you're just not bad enough.
So what I'm hearing is the safest goblin is the one that's good at animal handling.
It sounds like.
Because I'm going to have a pet warg and a pet choker.
Yeah. Just make sure you feed it. Because otherwise, it will feed somehow.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to just make fun of people. And anybody that's dumb enough to attack me gets eaten. And that's how I feed my pets. I don't even attack people. I just make fun of them.
Now, a little final bit of lore here. This is the one I find most fascinating is that some lore had them as a species of goblins that had degenerated due to cannibalism or magic. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that one as well.
I like maybe they were just kind of cut off. Maybe like a cave system collapsed or something and they were forced to eat their own. They turned into chokers. How fitting is that? That's pretty cool.
It's cool. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No. Well, magic.
But it's magic.
It's magic.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's Feyres in the deep Underdark and Forgotten Realms, and there's, what is it, the Dalkir in Eberron.
Sure.
You know, on your own world, the Underdark could be a host of all kinds of strange, weird magic or pollutants.
Absolutely.
they're basically the chud of goblins. Think about that.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know what chud is, go look it up. It's a movie.
They could also be halflings for that matter.
They could, in fact, be halflings. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Eberron chokers were created during the Age of Monsters by the Delkir from both goblins and halflings.
There we go.
Yep. As long as you fit the bill, then you got shape change.
Yeah. And if all else fails, make them just aberrations or monstrosities of some sort.
Sure.
And it works. Let's talk a little bit about stats.
All right. They're not super bright, per se.
How bright are chokers, generally speaking?
They have an int of 4 as their stat block.
Okay, so they're pretty dumb, but they do speak,
Yes.
which is interesting. Undercommon or deep speech.
Right.
They got dark vision.
Sure. Got to.
Yeah, got to be able to see in the dark to choke the life out of a goblin.
Some books state that they are unnaturally quick. They have high initiative, dex, reflex, and AC.
Mm-hmm. Now, 3rd edition gave them like an extra attack or an extra action.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah. Depending upon the version you play with or your inclinations to kill your PCs, you could add that back in if you want.
Absolutely.
And we suggest you upgrade them to make them more horrifying for your game.
If nothing else, just give them the rogue's cunning action that gives them either a dash or a disengage.
That's
or
true.
a hide.
Yeah.
Boom. Problem solved.
Speaking of hiding.
Oh, yeah. They're stealthy.
Mm-hmm. Really good at sneaking around and choking the life out of you, or goblins, or halflings, or anything else.
They have tentacle limbs.
Yeah, their arms are all bendy and wavy. They're like the wacky inflatable arm-flailing tube guy.
Sure thing.
And as we mentioned, some books say that they're more multi-jointed than tentacled and made of cartilage.
Right.
So,
Like shark skeleton.
yeah. And I would actually say mix and match. They're aberrations. They could have, multi-joints. Some of them could have tentacle limbs.
In Matt's world, they're cephalopods. They're aberrant cephalopods.
That actually makes a really horrifying sense, now that I think about it. I like that.
That's how I would at 100% run it.
Yeah. What else they got?
They've got spider climb.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that earlier. They got those spiky hands and feet,
Now, they're small, but,
but they have reach.
yeah,
10
10-foot
feet?
reach.
Yeah.
So they've got the super long, their stretcho arms. Their strangling hands obviously can do like a crushing damage because they're chokers.
Right.
They should do that. But they can also do bludgeoning damage or, in some books, slashing damage, which is kind of cool. And of course, they've got a nasty bite. Get these big old
You got it.
teeth.
Man, you're eating through goblin. That's like leathery and
Yeah, you got to chew that, man.
yeah.
You got to have some good chompers to get through that.
They have rubbery skin. And in some books, see, going back to my cephalopod,
Oh, yeah.
they were able to change their color.
That's pretty fascinating.
Chromatophores.
So
cephalopods.
So camouflage.
Yep.
And finally, their flexible skin allowed them to enter a gap as narrow as 4 inches. And this was said in multiple books.
Yes.
4 inches.
Specifically
The
4 inches.
4 inches was really fascinating to me. And you have a theory behind that.
Cephalopod.
Yes, but also for the 4 inches.
My theory behind 4 inches specifically is castles
Mm-hmm.
were built with murder holes.
So the arrow slits for buildings and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
And to drop things down and what have you. That had to be wide enough that you could angle one direction or the other. So that would allow our creepy little choker fellow to work their way into castle fortifications. And I think
That's where that came from?
that's where that came from.
They could basically,
or
like-
some variance of it.
I could also see them kind of crawling up through the poop chute, the privy,
Yeah.
4 inches wide. It's about, but like standard, sewage
Yeah.
tube or something like that. They could come in through the sewers as well. So any small type of hole.
Yeah, it would allow them to get through like the big sewer grates.
Yeah, imagine, it's a late night. You've had a long night out drinking. You're on the privy.
Yeah.
And then this thing just comes out of the
Whiskey and Taco Bell, and then
thing comes out of the black and just chokes the life out of you.
And then death.
And then death. There you go. Now, if all that wasn't interesting enough, again, what else makes them interesting?
Well, your description, I think, is fitting.
Rubbery Cthulhu murder halflings.
Yeah.
And that's what we should call them now. Rubbery Cthulhu murder halflings. Because they're great.
Yeah. They're good for sneaky horror.
Yes, absolutely. So you've got ambush horror with the Ropers, sneaky horror with the Chokers.
Yep. You could even run a murder mystery campaign where literally the monster is who's doing all of the choking, but because it's a big city, they keep constantly getting interrupted, and so they just flee off.
Oh, that would be cool.
And so you're going to be looking for people. Like, who is killing these? What person has a grudge against all of these people? It's not.
But this thing's hiding under the dresser because there's a 4-inch gap.
Exactly.
Waiting for you to go to sleep, chokes the life out of the investigator. Oh my God, the investigator's died. It must be a political assassination. No, it's just a pissed off choker.
He's just hungry, man.
He's just hungry. Randomly.
Stop bugging me. I'm hungry.
Just choking the life out of you. Yeah, so something to think about. And finally, as you mentioned, with the murder mystery stuff, they make great assassins.
Yeah, with very little tinkering.
All you need, a little bit of tinkering, a little bit of skills. Got yourself a Rubbery Cthulhu murder halfling. Murder for hire halfling.
I've got some great plans for that.
All right, let's get to that. But first, we'll be right back.
After these messages.
You with the face. Do you like what we have to say?
Help our channel rise from the depths like the mighty Godzilla.
Please like and subscribe and ring the bell and do all of the necessary YouTube.
What he said.
If there are any topics you would like us to cover, goods or services you would like us to review, or if you would like to sponsor an episode, we would love for you to contact us at info@goblinscorner.com.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
So we're talking ropers and chokers on this Valentine's Day special.
Indeed.
And we went into a little bit of the lore and stats and some possibilities that you can use to play with ropers and chokers and why we think that they're unloved and they should be given love.
Indeed.
By murdering your PCs.
Yes.
But we never go with the standard issue monsters. We always give a little bit of options, some storyline options, and some, let's say, numeric advantages. Upgrades to ropers and chokers. And to that end, let's go ahead and start by upgrading our roper.
Okay.
How would we start first off?
The simple one is one we've already mentioned, right? Take them off of the floor and put them on the ceiling.
Yeah. Roper on the ceiling. There you go.
Boom.
I would also put ropers, as I mentioned, on the side.
Yep.
Ropers in a pit. Ropers in strange locations. Now, think of a cavern system and put your roper there. Like, not just on the floor or on the ceiling, but around that twist. Like they're in, like they're in that pancake room or they're flattened. Have a roper that's maybe like wedged in there. And as they're crawling on their hands and knees, it lashes out with its tendrils to get them.
That would be fun. Have one right on the other side of that crawling situation.
Oh, yeah.
And so they get within 10 feet. The roper literally just reaches in, snatches them out, takes a bite out of the first one. The rest of them still have to finish crawling out to help their friend.
Here's one that might be kind of fun. A stone elemental or a stone golem that has ropers kind of living on its shoulders.
That would be fun. Yeah.
They just kind of crawl up one day. The stone elemental or the stone golem doesn't care. And it's just kind of like, whatever. Or maybe the wizard says, yeah, go ahead and let them sit there. And over time, they assist by cleaning the dungeon of whatever the stone golem or stone elemental kills.
Sure.
So part of adventures comes in, or a group of dwarves, they're digging, they find this guy, we're going to kill it, right? It's just a stone elemental, stone golem, and it murders a couple, but maybe during battle, they suddenly get grabbed by paralyzing tentacles or whatnot, grappled, and now they just get choked to death.
It is bad days when you get grappled by the thing riding the stone golem, who still gets all of his attacks because
Yes.
he's not the one grappling.
So he's beating
Or
the snot
it,
out of this
obviously.
guy who's literally getting crushed to death or bitten, partially ingested. So that'd be the first way to upgrade, is to put them on other things.
Sure.
Now, what else could we do?
Well, you can put them in other places.
Hmm?
Oh, yeah. Put them underwater.
Oh.
Make them look like coral.
Oh, that would be awesome. An underwater roper.
I mean, that's basically what coral does anyway.
That's true. You could put them in a sewer system, make them look like piles of detritus.
Sure. And a forest with the whole dead tree trunk.
Dead trees, dead logs. Yeah, that all works. Or even just rocks in a forest would work too, like on a mountain range or something like that.
Put them in a ruined castle.
Have them look like pieces of stone.
Yeah.
Or ruins from a building. That would be awesome. You imagine you're trying to break down the door, you bust down the door, you come into like a room and there's like rubble everywhere, and the piece that you sit down because you just, the barbarian just broke through the door.
Sure.
He sits down, job well done. Sits down and the roper takes a bite out of his ass.
Yep. It grabs both of his calves. and
Sure.
just- pretending to be a pillar on a pier.
That would be fun.
Every once in a while, a fisherman goes missing. Nobody knows why.
Where'd he go? I don't know. Something took him. Asked the roper. He knocked out a pier and pretended to be it. This one I find amusing as well. Put it in a fancy ballroom. Make it appear as a column.
They could be trained.
Oh, they could be guards.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we also mentioned earlier is that they can change and they can look like other things. So you could make them look like other types of objects as well. Some examples, as we mentioned, dead trees, mountain rocks. Think of giant fungi in a cavern. They don't have to look like stone.
It's true.
A large grandfather clock. Now we're bordering on mimic here.
See, now I would say grandfather clock would be closer than mushroom, because they can change their color, but they can't change their shape.
They could be a big puffball mushroom.
It's true. Just not like classic mushroom mushroom.
Anything tall or cylindrical, rectangular or pointy. And it might be also of note, you could have things grow on the roper to make them even more camouflage. So you could have fungi attached to the roper.
Absolute moss.
Yeah, moss. There you go. Now some mossy rock, mossy stone.
Mold. There's 100% going to be mold on a roper. The reason being they don't take showers and they've got blood all over them.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah.
Now, how else could we upgrade a roper? Well, let's play upon the earth elemental lore from earlier editions.
Okay. You can literally make them more stone-like.
So they could just be elementals.
Yeah.
That's a huge upgrade because now they're resistant to bludgeoning damage or whatever. You could make them made of metal or sand or even magic. Imagine a crystalline roper.
Sure.
So, for example, on the para-elemental plane of gems, I could see like this crystalline cavern system, and maybe one of the pillars is a roper. And it's beautiful, right? It's all
It's gorgeous.
yeah, made of agate or whatever, and it's got like this big ruby eye, and it lashes out and devours you.
You could even, if you wanted to describe this, right, you could even describe that it is a crystalline case that encases another crystalline color.
Oh, that would be cool.
It's not. It's the oozy roper that's inside of it, but whatever.
Be like a roper geode.
Yep.
That would be neat. How about a lava roper?
Sure. I mean, that sounds awful,
So-
but yeah.
It's an example, you're in like a caldera of like a volcano, and one of the columns happens to be a magma or a lava roper, and it looks like just like a piece of basalt,
Sure.
and it just lashes out with these fiery tendrils, which stick to you, grapple you, and do fire damage, and it opens this maw, and there's just this furnace inside it.
Now, you could do that as an elemental, or you could just put that in hell.
You could, in fact, make it, yeah, you could put it in
'Cause
hell.
because that sounds hellish to me.
I'm going to throw another couple at you. Parallel elemental planes don't get enough love. How about a salt one? A pillar of salt.
100%.
Desiccation damage.
Yep.
And finally, ooze. They do worship the deity of ooze.
Yeah.
So make them like maybe not blubbery, but like oozy, acidic.
I mean, at that point, I would feel it necessary to make them, since they were chosen by Ganondorf, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would make them angelic figures. Ooze angelic.
Sure.
Right?
No, I'm digging it.
And you could get really fun and stupid with that.
Yeah. So just changing their physical form would be very easy to upgrade a roper. What else could you do?
You could make them slightly more intelligent.
Okay.
And give them tactics and the potential for nonviolence.
Now, this is really interesting because then they really become less of a threat, so to speak, but also more of like an NPC.
Yeah.
This gives you the ability as a DM to make them information brokers in a cavern system or a forest or wherever you happen to put the roper.
Right.
Because they look like stone.
Yeah.
And when they close their eye, they look like whatever natural formation. You could have them in a meeting place, like in a city.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine kind of like a dark, dank alleyway where all the thieves gather, and it's just an information broker because it hears everything. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. Put them in a city park.
Sure. Like right next to a bunch of stones and stuff like that, and it just overhears everything that goes on and occasionally disposes of miscreants.
Sure.
You could give them class levels, speaking of which.
They have a wisdom of 16.
That's good enough for a cleric.
That's true. It's also good enough for a druid.
And a monk.
And a monk.
Think about that. A roper monk.
Way of the astral self.
Way of the astral self? Yes. You roll up on this roper, you think you're going to... The warrior comes up and it's like, what you got? The roper all of a sudden sprouts out some tendrils, but also these astral arms, which look like astral tendrils, and just starts beating the snot out of the warrior.
Man, I'm going to be like, check, please.
Wait till he kicks. That'd be awesome. Yeah. So that would be fun. Warlock and sorcerer would also be hilarious. A warlock roper. Why not?
I feel like Ganondorf would absolutely take warlocks also.
Oh, warlock packs for that?
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
He's an elemental deity.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like elemental deities, they don't care.
No. If you're upgrading your roper, you could also give them extra abilities, some of which include bringing back the strength draining tendrils. Make those tendrils drain strength damage or strength drain or whatnot.
Or drain anything else.
Yeah, so vitality or intelligence.
Constitution, if you made it a vampiric roper.
That is also, you could make them undead. Oh, yeah. That'd be awful. I like the intelligence draining one.
Yeah.
And what I would do is the more that they drain,
the smarter they get.
The smarter they get. Yes. And then you start, so.
It's intelligence leech, not intelligence drain.
So bear with me for just a second. You know how cranium rats, the more group they get, the smarter they get and they start getting spell-like abilities and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine Roper rolls up on a wizard, starts draining him. The warrior's beating at him, the paladin's praying, the cleric's getting ready to cast something. Meanwhile, this poor wizard's just getting his brain drained by the roper and probably eaten at the same time.
Sure.
And every round he loses a point of intelligence, the roper gains a point of intelligence, and after a certain point starts getting innate abilities. And then a couple rounds later, somebody comes up, maybe the thief, maybe she's getting ready to backstab. Roper turns around and casts Fireball. Just explodes her.
Well, you never fireball the thief. That's pointless. But
that's true. They would evade, but you get the picture.
For those of you still playing 3.5, you could make your roper a spell thief.
You, in fact, could make them a spell thief.
And that would build all of those mechanics in for you.
That's nasty. What else could you do?
Breath weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Acidic bite.
Oh, yeah. How about an eye laser?
It's got one big eye. It should have an eye laser.
Or an anti-magic eye. Hey, look at that. Now you've got them descended from beholders of some sort, which would be really cool.
Yep. Aberrations are aberrations.
That's right. Finally, you can upgrade their behavior or habits. So, for example, maybe they eat gems instead of flesh.
So going back to the whole elemental side and Zorn type thing.
They could consume memories,
I can see that.
and that would be cool. Or maybe they get more intelligent every time they eat a creature. Or more powerful every time they eat a creature, much like the...
Barghest.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about upgrading chokers.
Okay. First off and foremost, if you're going to upgrade a choker, upgrade their intelligence.
Make them smart.
It's the easiest thing to upgrade. If you make them smart, then they get way scarier, way faster.
Yeah, because they have weapon usage, tactics, traps. I mean, how about alliances with other creatures? If they're intelligent, they can be reasoned with and they can plan.
It's true.
Going on that route, if they're more intelligent, then they obviously get...
Classes.
What class would be perfect for a choker, you might ask?
Rogue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be the
Assassin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
assassin rogue.
Assassin rogue. Or a fighter would be good. A grappling fighter would be hilarious.
Monk.
Monk, of course. And one you might not think about, illusionist.
Absolutely.
They've already got camouflage abilities. They're already kind of sneaky. Make them an illusionist.
Yeah, might as well throw silence and invisibility on that.
Bingo. Or Evard's black tentacles.
Yeah, we'll go the full tentacle route with them.
Yeah, why not? There's lots of fun things you could do with class. Experiment with that. Throw some class abilities in. What else can we do?
The location of where you put them changes a lot about how creepy they are.
Yeah. Now, we've already got caverns and forests, but you can also think about city sewers.
Once again, climbing up the potty.
Yeah. Jungles and swamps, we mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Swamps would be really good,
Yeah.
by the way. Sitting there in the bog, all of a sudden this gator comes up, and there's this blubbery thing. It looks like an octopus, but it looks shaped like a halfling. Blubbery and round. He grabs you, drags you down, and the crocodile bites you as well. That's what they do in the swamp.
A ranger.
A ranger? Oh, a choker ranger?
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be cool. And his
crocodile.
is this animal companion?
Yep.
Absolutely. That would be great. You could put them in the tundra or the taiga forest.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. There's nothing in the taiga but chokers.
Yep.
Willing to choke the life out of you.
Give him a dire saber humped camel. Boom.
Yep. And fur.
Yeah.
They'd look like tiny little yetis. Little rubbery yetis.
They 100% would.
That would be awesome. You could also, of course, upgrade their abilities or stats, much like you could with a roper. Here's a couple fun examples. First off, make them fey.
Sure.
That makes them horrible because they get specific abilities
Mm-hmm.
and weaknesses, of course, like silver.
And, you can play with that. Like, make them sort of like a cousin of the red cap.
Yes.
Right. You can have them be resistant to certain damage types because of their rubbery skin.
Mm-hmm. Could have them regenerate limbs.
Cephalopod.
Yes, I know. You're hung up on the cephalopod thing.
Give them blur, displacement, invisibility, right? Just run down that whole stealth tree.
Give them shadow powers. Maybe make them from the shadow fell. That would be kind of cool. That would explain why they're all bendy, because they've been twisted out of normal geometry.
Yep. Far realm, man.
I mean, yeah.
Go
they
aberration
straight,
with it as well.
Straight go from the far realm. You can give them all kinds of extra stuff, right? Make them quicker. That's always fun.
If you describe it correctly, speed can be super creepy,
Yes.
right? If you do the jerk speed,
Coming at you like that chick from The Ring.
yeah,
Matt didn't see that.
no.
But you guys know what I'm talking about.
I was thinking the nurses from Silent Hill.
Oh, Silent Hill's good too, yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. Give them poison. And this could be the regular type of poison, or it could be dex damage poison or strength damage poison. I like paralyzing poison myself. It's so much easier to choke the life out of a halfling when
When they're not moving
they're
at
not
all.
moving. Yeah, can't get away. We talked about their bite or their limbs. You could give them extra reach or extra bite. You know, it'd be kind of cool in like an H.R. Geiger type of way. They bite you, but then there's like a mouth inside that bites you as well.
Sure.
Make them more alien, basically.
If you treat them, like I mentioned earlier, more like treat their creepy little starfish hands more like a displacer beast tentacles,
Mm-hmm.
then they should deal crushing or bludgeoning and piercing, or bludgeoning and slashing.
So mix up the damage types, basically, is what you're saying.
Yep.
They could drain strength or do cold damage, I think would be kind of cool. So the cold damage would be like if they were from the Shadowfell. And then the strength draining damage would just be kind of consistent with the fact that they're crushing the life out of you. And that would be a cool Fey ability, too.
Absolutely. Now here's something to think about. In Eberron, chokers were made by the Delkir
Yes.
from halflings and goblins. Okay, sure, why not? But what if they decided to make one out of a Goliath?
So make them bigger, is what you're saying. That would be horrifying and awesome. So you'd have like this Slender Man,
Yeah.
rubbery horror murder thing, something that freaks me out. Give them wings. So now you have flying monkeys, flying tentacle monkeys.
Yeah.
Straight up Wizard of Oz. It would be awesome.
I know it doesn't say it in any of the stat blocks or anything like that. In my world, they clearly have brachiation.
Or a swim ability since they come from cephalopods.
Yes, both, in
Both.
fact.
Yeah, I could see that. And finally, make being a choker a disease or a curse that affects goblins or halflings. Now this,
Nice, like lycanthropy or mummy rot.
yes,
Yeah.
they get so mad. Your halfling rogue or your halfling cleric's rolling up, gets bit. A couple days later, now it's strangling you to death and consuming your corpse. Alternatively, make it a form of undeath for halflings or goblins that murder their own. Now
Yeah.
that's flavorful and awesome.
You can't do it for goblins, but for
Because
halflings,
they'll murder their own anyway.
right? Like literally, the world would just be filled with chokers.
It's true.
How
But
many
halfling-
goblins have been murdered by goblins?
But halflings and gnomes.
Yes,
That would be perfect.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So there's a couple ways to update and upgrade your Roper and Choker. Now, we would be remiss if we did not give you some story possibilities. And Matt, I think we found some that are most choice for these two types of monsters, if I do say so myself.
I agree, and we've touched a little bit on some of them.
That's true.
So, in this case, the party hears rumors of a rash of murders at a local bar. The locals are beginning to fear going out at night.
It's true. What is it? Could it be a Roper? Could it be a Choker? Something's murdering somebody.
Could it be a
of-
choker riding a roper?
It could, in fact, being a Choker riding a Roper. You know what I see? For some reason, I see is the Roper being the organ grinder and the Choker being the monkey.
Oh, see, I actually was thinking of like a choker cowboy who was swinging his arm like a lasso because they're so
Yeehaw.
rubbery.
Yeah, that'd be great. Now, bear with me on this. Imagine, because the Feywild book has come out recently.
Yeah.
Imagine in some kind of twisted version of My Feywild, there's a Roper that literally he's got like the whole get up and he's got the monkey, the trained monkey with the whole music box.
Mhm.
And the monkey is a Choker
Sure.
in this carnival of lost souls, right? That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
The PCs must infiltrate a nobleman's guards, which is using hired ropers as security. How do you break through? They're always hungry.
But you're in deep trouble because the odds of you already knowing that are pretty low.
Correct.
Pilgrims must travel to the Whisper Rock and hear its tales and provide it with stories and sometimes food.
Sometimes themselves as food. Yes. At the circus, one of the acrobatic performing chokers has escaped. Players must track it down before it performs on an unsuspecting audience member. Which is what a cool story. because they're not really that intelligent, but you could potentially train them.
It's true.
And they have spider climb. They could do all kinds of fun tricks.
Okay. So follow me here.
Mm-hmm.
You get an undead that looks alive.
Okay.
And you have the chokers who are, acrobatic performance artists, right?
Right.
They swing this undead by his neck from person to person to person while the crowd oohs and ahs because that should clearly kill him.
But it's not.
Right. And then he lands and ta-da!
I love that idea.
Ooh.
This undead performer that just wouldn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great story idea. What else do we have, Matt?
It's definitely weird. I don't know where that came
That's
from.
Great for me. I love weird.
Chokers doing jobs. They're intelligent. They
Mhm.
don't have to be chaotic evil. We play around with alignment a lot.
True.
What if they're just chimney sweepers and window cleaners?
Oh, they can fit in small spaces, clean stuff out. Could also be plumbers.
Yeah. They could clean they could basically clean out the sewers and all the pipe. We discussed that as an aggressive tactic, but what about just as sewer engineers?
It's true. They could also open jars. They got a hell of a grip.
Yeah.
A roper named Chubby eats evidence for a small fee, no questions asked. Now, it's something we didn't bring up too much in the lore, but they will literally eat anything except, I think, metal.
Yes.
And so imagine, he's just in an alleyway, chilling. You want some evidence removed? Could be a dead body. Could
Whatever.
be something else. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
He'll eat it. Give him some money. That's it. What a great story idea.
Do you give him money? Like, what's he going to do with it?
Buy more stuff to eat.
Could be true.
Gotta eat.
Yeah. A choker assassin has been terrorizing minor nobility of a kingdom. Choker plus a headband of intellect
Mm-hmm.
plus arcane trickster.
That's nasty. Spells, intelligence, and choker.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
Bad days.
Another one. You were hired by a church to protect missionaries going to proselytize to a roper colony. Remember, they're wise. They
Yeah.
have a wisdom. They could potentially be converted.
And an intellect.
They could potentially be converts to a religion.
Yep.
And clerics, which would be even more hilarious.
Okay, so hear me out. Let's do the follow-up to that.
Okay, what's the follow-up?
The follow-up is you now have a church of insert God of light
Mm-hmm.
here in the Underdark with a bunch of roper clerics just cleaning out the Underdark.
That would be awesome.
Just
I think that'd be hilarious.
the follow-up stories, like as a paladin or a cleric of that religion, right? You get your little news bulletin,
Yeah.
and the bulletin is Elderbrain destroyed by new converts or whatever.
That's delightful. I love everything about that. The party finds a litter of baby chokers. Can they keep them and teach the creatures to be helpful rather than evil?
Yeah.
Why not?
Absolutely.
What a great story point for that.
Deep in the sands lurks the ruins of Narget Thyr and the dreaded Roper mummies.
Roper mummies. Think about that. That's all we got to say. And finally, in a little-known bar in Skullport lie the battlegrounds, a choker-run gladiator pit where the losers are thrown to a colony of ropers. Run by chokers, and the end result of the losers get thrown and eaten by the ropers.
Sure. You could have the ropers be your bartender or your security, and that's just how they get paid.
So there you have it. Some story ideas, a little bit of lore about chokers and ropers, and ways to throw them into your campaign, either upgraded or just by their lovable selves.
Absolutely. You just want to pinch their rubbery little cheeks.
So cute, hideous. Yeah. Any questions or comments? Write to us. info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric@goblinscorner.com, or
Me, Matt at goblinscorner.com.
we're on all the things. Matt, what are some things we're on?
We're on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Twitch.
As Goblins Corner.
and Instagram
as The Goblins Corner. Did you like our show? Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player, YouTube, and Twitch.
If you could do us a favor, click those 5 stars and give us a review on iTunes, Podchaser, or YouTube. It boosts our show, puts us in front of more people, and it feeds the hungry algorithm.
Which is currently crawling up the window slit to choke the life out of you. That's all the time we have for tonight. Once again, my name's Eric.
And I'm Matt.
We'll see you next time.
Good night, folks.
The Goblins Corner is written and produced by Eric Holden.
And Matt Staples.
Show song by the mighty D20.
This is a Subterranean production.
Basie.